North Carolina State Highway Patrol.
What cigarette do you smoke, Doctor?
A contributing factor to our juvenile delinquency of today.
Rock and roll has got to go.
And welcome back to the Hometown Holler. I'm Daniel Ayers.
And I'm Quinn Ray. Well, hey, man.
You, of all people, understand and appreciate my love of late Anglo-Saxon linguistics and etymology, right? Do you know what a reeve is?
Enlighten me.
So I'm listening to a history course on Anglo-Saxon England, and a reeve was like a community leader or administrator, who would run.
I see where you're going with
land of the aristocracy, right, of the royal family. For example, in Anglo-Saxon England, you didn't have counties; you had shires. And a shire was
like Lord of the Rings.
It was like the lowest. It was like one of the lowest levels of government administration. And it was essentially your shire was like a community of a certain number of warriors who could muster, like within a day's travel or something like that. And the guy who ran the shire was the shire reeve. We call that a sheriff today. Shire reeve,
I
sheriff,
learn something
right?
new every day.
But what's really cool, so reeve was like a leader in the community. And I was just thinking, we have a leader today, and Reeve is like literally, he's Reeves, right? Robert Reives.
What a golden transition.
I was so proud. I was listening to like my great courses thing on the way over, and I was like, oh my gosh, light bulb moment.
Yes, that was really good, Daniel.
Thanks. Every now and then, was it even a broken clock finds an acorn every, something like that?
two metaphors put together. But yeah, we got a leader in here today.
Cool. I think I'm going to post that in the caucus room. Thank you.
There you go. Friends, our guest today is none other than Representative Robert Reives, the Democratic leader of the North Carolina House of Representatives. Born and raised in Sanford, North Carolina, Representative Reives has deep roots in our state, growing up in a family that emphasized public service and community leadership. After earning his law degree from UNC Chapel Hill, he built a career as a prosecutor and private attorney before stepping into public office.
Yeah, and Robert Reives was first appointed to the NC House in 2014, I think, and then elected 6 consecutive times after that.
Yes.
He's been a leading voice on economic development, education, and justice reform. He has played a key role in bipartisan efforts to expand workforce training programs, fought for increased school funding, and is an instrumental position to push for Medicaid expansion, a long overdue policy that the House Democrats really helped champion to get that through with his leadership. He continues to champion fair redistricting, voting rights, and policies that strengthen the working families across North Carolina, and that's what we really need. So we are excited to have him today here on The Holler to talk about the future of North Carolina, what's happening now, what keeps him hopeful, and how can we stay engaged in this fight for a better state. So without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, the leader, Mr. Representative Robert Reives.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate you guys having me. This is really exciting.
Yeah. So as we stated in your title, you are the leader of the Democrats in the House of Representatives in Raleigh.
Yes.
And for folks who may not be super familiar with the machinations of our state government and our legislative branch, what does it mean to be the leader?
I would say that it means I'm more of a manager, head wrangler, for lack of a better term.
Team captain.
Yeah, it is because, obviously we don't hire or fire, but I do try to represent the thought process and the values of all of our members. And that is the key point. And, and that's really what the hardest part is that not only am I representing my constituents, obviously, that voted me in, but I've got to represent the concerns of, all Democrats in the caucus and Democrats throughout North Carolina.
Sure.
And being the leader, you're not just selected because of seniority. Your party members elect you.
Yes.
Is that how it works? And you were first appointed leader or elected leader in
2020.
Yeah, 2020 was
like
when
December,
I was elected, December
really
2020.
late.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, it is elected. No, it's not based on seniority, because that's kind of the funny part about me even getting into it, is that the first time I was approached about it was my second term, or my first full term. That was in 2016 by our previous leader, Darren Jackson. And so we, and I appreciate it. I mean, because I thought the world of Darren. I still think Darren is one of the great leaders we've ever had in this state.
Okay.
Just a good guy. And he, that was kind of his position. He was just like, Rob, I think you'd be great. Larry Hall was stepping down. He's like, I think you'd be a great leader. And I said, I appreciate him. In my second term, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
But I did agree to be his deputy. And so we ran together, which was unusual at the time. And so I learned a lot from Darren.
Sure.
And, I wouldn't go as far as saying ready when it came around in 2020, but, I think that Darren had prepared me as well as anybody could.
What's the difference between the party leader and like the minority whip?
Yeah, well, caucus leader.
Caucus leader and the minority whip.
Minority whip usually does more of the hands-on stuff. So, for instance, the whips in our group are responsible for vote counts, are responsible for really focusing on the members that they have in their groups. And so what they're trying to do is really try to, and if you're a minority whip, you're really just trying to help members get more acclimated to where we are.
Okay.
If you're a majority whip, it's usually a singular title. And, you're there for vote counts, running meetings and things like that.
Got it. Before you came on, we talked to our good friend, Ricky Hurtado.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who's a friend of the Holler. He knew you, spoke very highly of you and stuff. And he was like, whatever you do, you got to get him to tell a story. You've got to get him to tell us a story. He's really good at storytelling. Can you, filter through that filing cabinet of yours and just tell us a story of, you coming up and become this journey in leadership?
Well, what I think leadership really means is being able to subsume yourself. And that to me is, really what it's got to be, because when you become a leader, you're not thinking about just you, or you're not thinking about just your immediate people. You're thinking, what can I do to help people come together and push forward for things that help all of us? And a lot of times when you think about it, the things that would help you personally aren't necessarily the things that would help all of us. Personally,
Right.
you got especially in politics,
Sure.
with the advent of social media, you can, do all kinds of things that become viral and all
the
kinds of
optics.
things.
Yeah.
And, and unfortunately, you got a lot of people that's where their focus goes.
Yeah.
And being a true leader is understanding that you take a back seat and you help others go out front. You help others become better. You help others, become better leaders themselves, to help people have better lives. And to me, that's what leadership's all about.
Are you getting phone calls all the time from the caucus and other representatives just asking for advice, needing a dad prep talk?
Mentoring?
Yeah.
I would not say dad thing, because that would indicate more of a parent-child relationship. But I do have some experience.
Man, you are good.
Yeah.
You're good.
And I do appreciate the calls. There's so many times that people call and talk to me about things. I mean, they'll talk to me about life, because it again, being in politics, being in the minority, and being a Democrat these days, it's tough.
Man, say it again.
Because it's really funny, because you've got the people that you expect to be your loyal opposition, with the opposite party, but then you've also got the folks within the party. Everybody's got an opinion, no matter what you do. It's kind of like what's going to happen in the Super Bowl. Yeah. Well, I mean, Super Bowl's going to happen next week. Somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. I think Kansas City and Philly are both amazing teams, but whoever loses, their coach is an idiot, quarterback's no good, running back should have had a better game, defense sucked. And that's kind of how it is being a Democrat these days.
Yeah.
A lot of
we can't blame it on the refs.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, everybody's an expert on Monday morning.
Yes.
You talked a little bit about, kind of being a team captain, representing the whole team, fighting for the whole team, relating to the whole team, and fielding everybody's concerns. You have a caucus that has a moderate wing, it's got the progressive wing, and everybody in between. How do you manage that coalition of representatives in Raleigh, and navigating the differences between them, and making sure that folks are staying united and staying committed to a common purpose?
The difficult part is making each see value in the other. And I think that's been, again, one of the hard things about being a Democrat and being in the Big Ten. Is always funny, you'll hear, and I don't mean this to denigrate Republicans or anything of that sort, but you always hear about, they're masters of messaging, things of that sort. And I'm just like, well, it's kind of a monolith.
Yeah.
It's a little easy. So, if I was trying to, message right now, to make my son love me and his friends love me, it's pretty easy.
Right,
right. And it's just, when you've got to take into consideration all kinds of thoughts and ideas and feelings, that's the real key. And that's what my job is. My job is making people see that, hey, they may have this political philosophy, you got this political philosophy, but we actually have the same overarching goals. And sometimes you just can't see it.
Right.
Sometimes you'll look and say, well, if I were in that position, this is the only way I would vote. This is the only way I would be. But if you're truly representing the entirety of your district, if you're truly representing the entirety of the state, it's not that easy.
Right. Not just
Doing the
people that
right
voted
thing.
for you.
Yeah, doing the right thing is easy. If you can get past yourself. But, it's not that easy sometimes to see that maybe somebody else's approach to something doesn't mean that they're wrong. It just means that it's different. And that's what the real challenge is, I think, for me with the caucus, because I've got to make people understand that. I've got to make people look and say that because this person voted differently on you than you did on this issue, doesn't mean that they disagree with you on the issue. You've also got to remind Democrats that there's some issues that are only issues because we're in the minority.
Yeah.
And that is the hard part because, people...
Could you give an example of that?
Well, but because most of those examples are controversial, I'll just say it like this. Think of it like if you, again, you're in North Carolina. So you're NC State, you're UNC, or you're Duke. And I think that
Wake Forest is not even a question.
We're not going to talk about Wake Forest.
Respect.
But understanding that, when you get past your sports, when you're looking at school, you may have been a Carolina fan all your life, but if you want to be an engineer, you need to go to NC State, you need to go to North Carolina A&T.
Right,
if you're going to Duke and you want to, for us with law school, if you want to practice law outside the state, you need to go to Duke.
Right.
That's going to get you. And so it's making people understand that, guys, there are a lot more things that go into decisions than just your perspective. And that has become an increasingly difficult thing because you can't, sometimes, especially after losses, we start kind of falling into the purity test.
Sure, yeah.
And that's not fair to people who represent other places. In fact, I can use an example that I think is non-controversial. So we had a member of our caucus, Ken Goodman, who was there when I got there, and he represented Richmond County. And I'm telling you, Ken was an amazing caucus member. Did we vote the same all the time? No.
Shout out to Richmond County.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, Ken represented his district well. That district ultimately turned into a 20-point Republican seat.
Wow.
And Ken was able to hold that seat. Like, that seat didn't become a 20-point Republican seat after Ken left. That seat was very Republican when he was there.
And he was holding it down.
But he always made sure he was a great team player, but he also made sure he represented folks in his district because he understood it's not about what I feel. It's about what is it that you want me to do as your elected official.
Yeah.
And making other members understand that, you're going to have different concerns if you're sitting in the middle of Chapel Hill, of Durham, Chatham County, where I live. But, it's going to be different there. So that is a real challenge.
That's a good example. That makes good sense. And it also just sounds like that's how politics should be in general and not just in our caucus, right? But, man, have we strayed from just trying to see that, huh?
Well, it's the building of the coalitions. And that is the challenge with being a big tent is that coalitions are hard. It is really, really hard to understand that, if something matters to you, it matters to you. And I may not understand. I mean, I look at, your Funkos are, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. My Funkos are, the Mandalorian, all the Marvel characters, all that stuff. Oh, you
got the Mando up there.
I got the Darksaber. One of my guys in my office got that for me. He's my favorite person.
Man, I think Representative Reives has just became like 10 points cooler.
I feel so lame right now.
He knew they were Funko Pops, and then he's talking about Marvel Universe and Star Wars.
I don't know if you could see it on my face, but internally I was like, whoa. All right.
So now you talked about your caucus.
Yes.
Yes.
What about on the other side of that aisle? Because as a leader, I'm sure you talk to people.
Yes. And I think it's the same thing is that as elected officials, we got to recognize, again, because they believe something does not instantly correlate to then they're wrong. And what I mean by that is this. We may vehemently disagree.
Right.
But I've also got to see it from their viewpoint. And what my job is, not just with Republicans and their caucus, but really with people all over the state, and Democrats have this job, is I've got to be able to look from your perspective. And then I've got to make you understand why I believe that you are, there is error in your way. And that you're really not getting where you're trying to get. And really, I've had to do that sometimes on some basic issues, even when I disagree with the outcome of a bill. I remember one time we had a bill that we were arguing about. And it was, I completely disagreed with it. It was on body cams. And I've got a lot of law enforcement. I used to be a prosecutor. And I've got a lot of law enforcement that I still represent. I'm still very close to a lot of guys. One of my best friends is our sheriff in Chatham County. And, I know what they felt about the body cams. And so it became such a partisan issue that, you just couldn't push. So anyway, so the body cam bill was going through that I didn't even agree with. But I saw it was going to violate the open meetings law, which I know that was nobody's intent.
Right.
And watching how hard it was to get that point across kind of to me was a microcosm of what's wrong with government right now. Because I said, look, this doesn't change the outcome of your bill. You're getting the body cam bill you want, but if you violate the open meetings law, that's unconstitutional. You're getting ready to just come right back.
Right.
So why don't we fix this now?
Right.
Does that mean I'm going to vote for your bill? But it means I want it to be the best version of the bill.
Let's prevent this on the front end. Yeah.
And it was an interesting challenge.
Yeah, but when they're wrong, they're wrong. So like when it's 3 squared and somebody says 3 squared is 6.
Yes.
I see where they're coming from.
Is 3 squared not 6? Just kidding. Just kidding.
But they are wrong.
And that's where we've then got to say, you're not going to come across to what I'm doing. So now I got to talk to voters. Now I got to explain to them why it's problematic. And again, and the reason I use the example of saying you can't just go, because I can't go to them and say, you're an idiot.
Right.
And what you're doing is stupid. Or you're bad, or you're evil. Whatever it is that you're thinking or feeling, that's not going to nobody's going to keep listening to you.
Right.
At that point.
Instantly shut off.
But what you've got to do is you've then got to get it across through public opinion. And public opinion will sway you. I don't care how hardcore you are on either side. If public opinion starts to really, really rise against you, you're going to buck.
I mean, look at Mark Robinson.
Yeah. I mean, seriously. And so I think, where our challenge is right now, there are policies that are in place right now that are wrong. But they're wrong because my perspective is every single person in this state deserves an opportunity to be great, period. And the policies that are being put in place right now are policies that are clearly meant to keep things status quo. And in fact, it's meant to put impediments in place for your normal working person to ever advance. And so once you realize that that's their lockstep, okay, then you're wrong. But I've got to convince the people that it's harming, which is the other 99% of the state, that what it is. And you've got to watch how you do that. And so I think that I agree with you. There are things that I see that are patently wrong, that I patently vehemently disagree with. But once you realize, okay, I've shown you why this is problematic, so clearly we have different theories on what we should be doing as a government, then my job is to get out here and let your folks back home know, okay, this is what they're doing, and let me tell you why it doesn't benefit you. I mean, it's just...
and that's so hard.
Well, it's so funny because, like, when we talk about the budget, one of the things, like, I don't think we talk about economic issues enough in general. I don't think we talk about the budget specifically. When I look at how much we had $2.1 billion with a B dollars that went to special projects. And a lot of those special projects were just money going to friends. And, you're picking and choosing losers. So, for instance, think about this. Suppose we had a podcast fund. And so because you guys knew me and I'm in the majority, I gave you $10 million to fund your podcast. And that's not far off from the kind of stuff that happens now.
Wow.
Well,
I'll make sure I'll save your number once we're in the majority.
But what happens is that's picking winners and losers. So if I give that $10 million to your podcast, these other podcasts can't compete with you.
Sounds like a good old boys club.
Yeah.
Well, I won't use that term, but it is.
And you are so good. I said this again.
But I will say that there is a lot of nepotism.
Yep.
There is a lot of watching out for the people that you know. And I think that is the absolute wrong thing to do with somebody's tax money, because it's not your money that I'm giving away. I'm giving away taxpayers' money. And so what happens is a lot of people think, oh, well, if I turn down this money to this particular group of people, then that money is going to go for the public good. No, it's going somewhere.
Somebody's going to get it.
So it should benefit you, the taxpayer, instead of benefiting some person who has no concern for you.
You're making too much sense here, Mr. Reives.
On the question of disagreements with the other side of the aisle, as somebody who follows North Carolina politics closely, one thing that I'm a Rubik's Cube I'm constantly trying to solve is what percentage of disagreements are good faith disagreements on how to make a better North Carolina, bring more opportunity to people, raise the standard of living, and what disagreements are not good faith. And I guess one example that it was an easy one that comes to my mind would be like, I can't tell from our own representatives here in Alamance County to what extent they actually think that so-called opportunity scholarships, vouchers, are going to improve education or are somehow going to make our public schools leaner, more effective, more efficient, or if that's the fig leaf they're using because they cynically don't believe in public education at all and they just wish that public education would dissolve and we could move on to some entirely private arrangement. Do you have a sense of the proportion of good faith versus non-good faith, cynical? Like when you negotiate or when you talk with your partners on the other side of the aisle.
You're sitting with Tim Moore in a room and talking this stuff. Yeah, I know Tim Moore's not there anymore.
Right. But I think what it is it's hard to really put a percentage on it because I mean people like, for instance, opportunity scholarships are a perfect example. You know, and it's a voucher scheme.
Yeah.
And
right.
You know, and I don't mean to denigrate it, but I mean it is. It's just a scheme to move money from public schools to private schools.
Right.
Now you may have reasons that you believe in that, and I'm just not going to challenge that. I've got no benefit in challenging that. But what I can tell you factually is this. I can tell you factually, one of the things we've done well in Chatham County is economic development. And I can promise you, not one company has come in and said, you know what would work well for us? I want all of the people, the 98% of your population, to really get a bad K through 12 education.
Right.
If you just have
really
2%
subpar,
of them,
yeah.
If you only have 2% of them that get a good education, we're good because we're going to get those guys. No, they're going to say, guys, to compete, we've got to, at a minimum, have your guys be able to get through a great K through 12 education. So at that point in time, the discussion's over. So I don't even have to ascribe any motive to what you're doing.
Right.
What I can say is the facts don't bear out that this helps out. But what's happened, again, is this is now theory of government. Like I think the separations that you see a lot of times are really a theory of government. There's a theory of government. There are people in government. That doesn't mean all members of a caucus, all members of a party. But you have a theory of government from leaders in the party who have a belief that, no, I don't think everybody ought to be educated. No, I don't think that we ought to use this money and give people a quote unquote leg up. Because again, they're looking at it like it's their money.
Right.
And that's the part that would shock most people is that you honestly have people who get elected to that office who look at that $31 billion budget as if it's their money that they're spending. Like if they give you money to put back into your school, they're doing you a favor. You're not doing me a favor. You're giving me my money back.
Right.
Because what I'm saying is then don't have me pay taxes. If my taxes aren't going to benefit me, then let me keep my money like you let corporations keep their money. But, at some point in time, fair is fair. And not fair in the sense of, oh, you're being so nice to me, but fair in the sense of, hey. If I give you guys $100 right now, and you say, I'm going to take that $100, Robert, and I'm going to make it $110. And then you give me back $5, I'm going to have a problem with you.
Quinn does that to me all the time.
Yeah. It's just real easy.
But I'm telling you, that's where we are right now. But our job is to make people understand that. And, with the.
When you say our job, you mean a House of Representative members' job or
Democrats in general? Because this is something that can't be solved with elected officials. Right. Because the minute I walk in a room, I don't care how much people like me. I don't care how much they think of me or how much they appreciate what I'm saying.
How long did that take you to learn that?
We were just talking about this the other day. You want to be liked. I say not you, but like one wants to be liked. And it's so hard to get past that.
Yeah, but I'm telling you is that.
But if you're the minority leader, if you're the leader of the Democrats, you can't give a shit. You can't care.
I can tell you right now, if there's a job that you want to make sure you stay liked, don't be leader. But I'm serious. Like what's got to happen is that every single person who considers themselves a champion for people has to take it upon themselves to educate folks. Because people look at me and they say, well, he's a politician. And I'm a lawyer, too. Because, they'll say he's a politician and a lawyer. I'm not listening to him.
Right.
Double
but
trouble.
if they hear you guys say it, they'll say, okay, well, that makes sense because you don't have a dog in the fight.
Right.
And that's what we've got to get better at. And I don't think we do well because we do the Monday morning quarterbacking. We can't wait to tell you how bad a job you did.
Yeah.
But we don't want to ever take ownership ourselves and say, hey, I'm part of this. Because my thing is I'm part of the community whether I'm elected or not.
So you say that, and I feel like my whole life in politics, I've been hearing the same thing, right? Like with Democrats bad at messaging, we're always reacting, we're always the Monday morning quarterback. It seems like this is vastly known that Democrats are terrible at this.
Yeah.
Why aren't we doing anything about it?
Well, that's twofold. And one, I think I would push back a little bit.
I would challenge the premise personally.
Yeah. I don't think that it's a lack of people understanding messengers or
Okay.
messages. I think one, our problem is we don't get to choose our messengers. And here's what I mean. And this is no matter how you feel about a particular representative or elected official. What I mean is this. The truth of the matter is, for instance, I would use, and she's a lightning rod, and this isn't denigrating her, but she's a good example. But like you would use AOC.
Sure.
Okay, AOC is not leader of Congress, the Democrats in Congress. The leader of the Democrats in Congress when she got there was Nancy Pelosi. The leader now is Hakeem Jeffries. But 2 million people will take what AOC says as representing what the Democratic Party believes, and nobody even knows who Hakeem Jeffries is. And part of that is media. Part of that is money. I think what we have not wanted to accept, and I'm saying this is Democratic elected officials, money matters. You'd be surprised how many arguments you have where people say, well, it shouldn't be about money if you've got a good message. If I've got the best message in the world, but I don't have the money to get that message out, then how's anybody ever going to know that I've got a good message?
Man, aren't you preaching it? And, a good example here just locally, or North Carolina-wise, I think Natasha Marcus, right? She ran a campaign telling you what Causey was doing, was telling it had a great message, but without the money, it fell on nobody's ears.
Right, and that is a difference. What you have seen now, and I hate to fall into the narrative, but it's the truth. This is not, anybody just kind of.
Well, you don't have to fall in if you don't want to.
No, I'm just telling you.
Okay.
But the truth is that there is a real war going on between your one percenters and the rest of these folks.
I agree.
And I mean, it just is. And so what happens is, think of it like this, and I'll give you an example with us. So we were running, I think it was may have been the 20 campaign. Or might have been 22 campaign. So, we raised all this money. We're doing all these things and all that kind of stuff. And so, we got up, $4 or $5 million. Well, then a local billionaire dropped the $3 million check into the Republicans, dark money. And,
Ka-ching.
and I mean, and the thing is that's devastating.
Yeah.
Because you've done all this work to try to get this. And, and the good thing is when people give you money, that means they support you and all that kind of stuff. But, if they've got a couple of billionaires that are just going to make a decision that, we're going to fight that. We're not going to let you win that. And, I remember we got this going on all throughout the nation. We passed a law this year so that people could give Mark Robinson money and not be recorded as giving Mark Robinson money because they were so ashamed of Mark Robinson. And my thing is, guys, if you think this is happening for Mark Robinson, how many other times do you think this is happening? How many other times are you seeing just propaganda and all these kind of things? Look at what happened with Ricky.
Yeah.
They actually told a flat out lie, proved that lie about Ricky.
Made the Daily Show.
Yeah, but what are you going to be able to do? Because ultimately, if you don't have the money to tell people, hey, this guy running against me is just made up stuff.
And we're still not talking about like small amounts of money. Like Ricky still raised over $1 million in a seat that has 13,000 constituents.
Look, the Wilson seat, for example, 2 cycles ago, that seat cost you $250,000 at best.
Is Dante Pittman?
Yeah, Dante Pittman. This year, that seat cost $1.5 million per side in Wilson.
Insanity.
Wow. Yeah, but that's the problem is, again, we did a terrible job as Democrats. This is where messaging was bad. We did a terrible job as Democrats explaining to people, here's why you don't want money in. This ain't about fairness. This isn't about fairness or anything like that.
We ain't around here.
Yeah, so. I try to be right because I'm representing the caucus.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
But, it's not about fairness. It's about your voice is getting ready to be buried by somebody who's never seen you, never cared about you, and never been elected to office, but he's going to control your government.
Yeah.
So you need to keep money out of politics because of that. But, we didn't do anything about that. We didn't do anything about the Supreme Court. The United States Supreme Court problem has been coming for 20 years.
Yeah.
Republicans announced 20 years ago, we're taking over the United Supreme Court because every time we have something, the Supreme Court takes it away. So now people have accepted that Clarence Thomas got $5 million in gifts. I don't think that would influence him. I mean, seriously, that's where we are. But then at the same time, you'll have a Democrat that is, gone out to dinner somewhere and they're just like, oh, look at their corruption.
So, okay, so this is, I was explaining this to my civic students recently, this because they observe this stuff.
Yes.
And I was having to explain this asymmetrical warfare, the double standard, and just how I mean, they're the Senate, the Democrats will run out Al Franken, then Donald Trump is found liable for raping somebody, and it's like, I don't care.
Right.
Cool.
Right.
Make him president again. You know?
But the difference is, again, that's the issue we run into as a big tent, and not having a clear leader on our side. I mean, I think that we do undersell how important it is to have somebody whose voice is so strong that everybody accepts it and nobody's going to overcome it. And Obama's the last person that we had that position. Clinton had that position with the party. And now we look for reasons to run away from responsibility these days. What we'll do is, if I never take a position, you can never say I was wrong. And so we'll say, well, we need to have 16 ounces of water a day. I don't know. Well, I think that's unrealistic. I think we can only do 12 ounces of water a day. Well, see, you're terrible. So since you won't go to 16 ounces, we're not supporting you at all. Yeah, but isn't it better than the other guy who's getting ready to starve you of water? Who's going to make you dry? But we don't do that.
I saw this thing on the interwebs that was something about, at a certain point, doing something right has to be more important than doing anything wrong.
Yes. And I think that is a great line, because, I mean, we get frozen by being afraid not of what the other side is going to say. We're afraid of what our folks are going to say. I mean, like, you look at the Harris campaign, for example. I have heard 1 million people tell you how it's one of the worst campaigns they've ever seen.
I totally disagree. I thought, okay. Sorry, I didn't interrupt.
No. I was just saying, I'm not stopping you, but I'm saying, but at the same time, the same people who were telling you how terrible the campaign was were all over the campaign.
Yes, exactly.
And that's my issue. It's not whether or not they did a good job or didn't do a good job. I'm just like, guys, we got to be consistent.
Some revisionist history going on.
Well, I mean, because I think most of my caucus members will tell you that if I feel like I'm right about something, I'll tell you whether you win or not. I'm going to tell you, this is my feeling, this is my opinion, and it's not going to change because public opinion has changed.
Right. Yeah.
And we've got to get better about that. And that's what you see that's different with the Republican Party. Like with the Republican caucus, that Republican caucus in my 11 years, I've never seen them break on any of their major issues.
How do they do that?
Well, I mean, have you ever seen a photo of the Republican caucus?
Well, no, but even beyond that, it's fear. It is
fear of
the primary. When I first got there, my first year, it was Tom Tillis was still speaker, and Tom Tillis was in the delegation in Mecklenburg with a gentleman named Robert Brawley. He and Brawley had a falling out about something. I cannot begin to tell you what it was, 'cause I'm not in the caucus. What I do know is they kicked him out of the caucus and they primaried him immediately.
Wow.
And Robert Brawley went from being one of the stronger Mecklenburg representatives to, he's not been able to run for office since. He's tried to run for office, but he's been unsuccessful ever since then.
Wow.
I've watched it happen with more recent examples. I wouldn't name them just because, those people are still around. But, I watched somebody run for a leadership position, lose that position by 1 vote, and they were primaried out of that caucus next session. So that means they had that much support in the caucus that they were 1 vote away from winning an elected position.
They were that popular.
But once they didn't get that elected position.
That's cold.
Power is a hell of a drug, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, and it's and I don't want to see us go to that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because I think disagreements fundamentally make for better government, make for better laws and things of that sort. But on the flip side, it's not a situation where I would say one is more loyal than the other or anything of that sort. It's just, folks have just made a decision that, they're going to accept those consequences.
So Alamance County, where we're recording this conversation, we have some competitive elections here.
Yes.
They try their best to gerrymander us, and at least one of our districts is still competitive every time. And so
arguably both of them.
Arguably both, yeah.
I think both.
Yeah. And I'm curious to kind of use that as a springboard to ask you, what do you think is the road forward? What do you think it's going to take to make these races, maybe not just in Alamance County, but just statewide? What's the path through the rest of the decade?
Everybody's got to buy in. And again, it's not just elected officials, it's not just people that are running. I'm telling you that every single person, that's where we've been successful in Chatham County. Chatham County is a purple county.
Yeah.
It is misspeaking to say that we're a Democratic county. What it is a county full of Democrats that work their behinds off. They knock doors, they communicate with people, and they don't depend on their elected officials to do it. I am telling you that you can't name the people who are out there knocking doors. But, they've knocked every door in their universe 2 or 3 times by the time that election comes, and you don't get that everywhere. They raise money. and they understand we have differences in how we're going to get there. But their important point is this is the end result we want. We may differ in how we should get there, but the important part is to get people elected that believe this is the end result that we want. And that's where we're falling short. And so, and that's not being critical of Alamance. I'm telling you that I would say that's 99 of our counties. So what we've got to do is we've got to get people, one, to believe they can win. Number two, you've got to get them to understand, guys, the end goal is what it's about. It is not about getting the perfect. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And I know that's an old trite saying, but it's the truth that that is the definition of us right now. Is that I've heard people even within the caucus, they'll say, if we don't do it like this, I don't want to. I remember we were doing redistricting, and again, I won't name folks, but I mean literally, I think we had an opportunity to get a redistricting bill passed during 20, and I heard members, that they said, you know what? Looks like we're getting ready to win the majority. So why don't we hold off on doing that until later? And I was like, I don't think
the fuck you thinking? I mean, yeah.
Well, I will say that as somebody who was working the campaigns, I was just like, I don't think this is going to be as easy as you think it is.
Right.
But again, I remember that distinctly. And I know now that there are things that we could be avoiding right now. That cost us 2 or 3 districts just in rulemaking. And, who knows what would happen with the bill. But the thing is, for us to be the obstacle to the bill was disappointing. And we do that kind of stuff all the time. You're not going to get the perfect bill. And redistricting is the best example of it. A lot of us believe it should be an independent commission.
Sure.
But here's what I know. I believe that. I don't know that that's the right answer, but I know that we need to do something better than what we got right now. And so any movement we can make, we've got to make. And I think we've got to be that as a party and as people.
Yeah, Democrats had control at one point.
Yep.
They had gerrymandered districts, and the Republicans won. They beat those gerrymandered maps. So if they did it, damn if we can't do it, right?
Yeah.
Like it's there. And when you say that people need to buy in, is that working with your local party, going to your local Democrat party? Is it working with people like down home? Like what is buying in?
Buying in is walking in saying, I'm the dumbest person in the room. And I'm going to listen. I'm going to figure out, based on what everybody is saying, a path forward. I am going to follow. Once we decide on a path, I'm going to stick to that path. I'm not going to spend my time saying, man, those 2 guys don't know what they're doing about podcasting. I could do podcasting a whole lot better. If I was in charge, well, won't you get in charge? Nah, I don't want to get in charge. But if I was in charge, I'd be better than those guys. That's not helpful.
No, it's not.
Buy in, get in, and start doing it. I mean, because I'm telling you, it's like these jobs are hard. Like, for instance, county chair. Even paid, that would be a hard job to take.
My dad's county chair. So,
hey, okay, then he'll tell you. I mean, it's just hard. And it's the same thing like leader. I know there are people who would love to be leader because they love the title of leader. And I'm telling you, it is a difficult job.
It's a grind.
Because and it's not just the work, but it's just that the less responsibility I have as an elected official, the more opportunity I have to talk about the things openly that I really want to get into and what I care about.
Sure.
And what I've got to do is, again, the higher up, quote unquote, that you go on that rung, the more you've got to be able to bury yourself and make it about the greater good. And I think if we can decide that all this other stuff doesn't matter, what matters is the greater good, we'll win. I've got a friend of mine who works for a company, and I definitely don't want to name the company because under these rules, they'll disband the company.
Okay, we'll say KB Toys.
Yeah, we'll say KB Toys. That's a good reference. I think you were old enough for that. But anyway.
Yeah, that's a deep cut.
I'm telling you. But this is the most fascinating thing. So I know a guy that worked at the company, and he was a hardcore conservative. Like, he was, everything about him was stereotypical. He'll tell you this. He was a stereotypical, hardcore North Carolina conservative, just had his feelings. So he went to work for this company. And so part of the company's training was literally just giving you a history on workers in America and how government interacts and affects workers.
Man.
When he finished that 2-month training, he changed his party to independent. He is now not only a Democrat, but probably will be in, a Democratic county chair or vice chair or something like that. And I mean, is one of the biggest advocates for democratic principles you've ever seen. And it didn't take Democrats just working on him and pushing him. He literally just had to hear the history.
Yeah.
And once he understood the interaction between government, workers, why this stuff matters, it was like, ding. I don't know why I'm doing this. And that's what we've got to do. I'm telling you, when people hear what we stand for, when people actually hear us, we get those votes. When you look at the districts we flipped since I've been in there, every one of those districts has been a matter of us being able to get somebody who has bought into what we are as a party, not gotten into what they wish people cared about, but gotten into what it is people care about. And when you stop worrying about what you wish people would listen to, like Medicaid expansion is an example.
Yeah.
When Medicaid expansion was sold, I'll just say under the light that Republicans put it in 10 years ago, you couldn't get a soul to support us on Medicaid expansion. When Medicaid expansion became an economic issue, when it became this is why you don't have primary care, this is why you don't have hospitals, this is why, when you're having a baby, you got to go an hour and a half away from your town.
This is why Aunt Frances is dying.
Yeah, exactly. This is why you can't get good jobs in your area because people won't locate in your area because you don't have medical care. When all of that started clicking and then hospitals got on board, businesses got on board, Medicaid expansion happened.
Imagine that.
Yeah, but seriously, that's the thing we've got to do is make people understand this is how your government affects you. And a lot of people feel like a lot of stuff that's happening right now, like you look at some of these sanctions that the federal government has landed. I saw a great example talking about a sanction put on a particular country regarding soybeans. And so they said the country just went and they just said, fine, we'll just start doing business with Russia. And so now, and it was a great point the economists made. They said now not only are they doing this business with Russia, but they understand this is a system. And so what has now happened is they've made Russia less susceptible to sanctions. So not only have we lost that business forever, but on top, well, not necessarily forever, but probably for the short term. But now we've made Russia more resilient when we try to tell them you're out of line.
Way to go, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, it's like those kind of things, but people don't understand that because that requires people who are trying every single solitary day to get by.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out how they're going to pay for their bills, how they're going to pay their mortgages or rent, how are they going to pay for their health care, how are they going to send their kids to school every day. They're trying to figure this out. They don't have time to do this deep dive. We're blessed and lucky that we have the time to care about this stuff. But we've got to take those opportunities where it's 15 seconds, 30 seconds, or,
coming to Burlington, sitting on a podcast with two white guys and doing it.
Yeah, whatever it is, man, we've got to do it. But we got to do it all the time. You got to do it when you're in your barbershops. You got to do it in your hair salons. You got to do it at a grocery store.
Yeah.
Not confrontation, but just explaining to people when you hear their problems, telling them immediately, this is how this is affecting you. And this is why maybe part of your problem is the way you're voting.
Well, this reaffirms to me something that is like, in my political 10 commandments, like number 1 or 2, which is like politics is storytelling. And politics is starts with just that this is how it matters to me here and now in my community. Yeah. And not something abstract.
Right. It's not some far off tale.
Yeah.
We are coming up on some time here. Okay. But a little bit more. Can you just kind of tell us what's happening right now in Raleigh, what we should be expecting in the long session, what the majority party looks like they're about to try to push on us, and what the Democrats are doing to combat or move, and just what's happening.
In other words, how afraid should I be right now?
You should be afraid. Okay. Here's the problem that you're running into in all seriousness. We've hit a revenue cliff. And the worst possible time for us to hit a revenue cliff because we just had the most expensive natural disaster in the history of this state. So we've got to figure out how to get Western North Carolina back on its feet. And you see, we've already, we've passed 2 bills about Western North Carolina. Only one of them gave even a meager amount of help. And
one and a half bills, really.
Yeah, really. And I mean, and that's what I'm saying is that, we're not serious about it. But part of the reason we're not serious about it is because I think the majority party knows that we're hitting this revenue cliff. And we're hitting the revenue cliff because of decisions that they made to get elected instead of decisions they made for real governing.
And for folks new to the pod, what's a revenue cliff?
That means that there's certain things in the state that no matter what you do, you've got to be able to pay for.
Not discretionary.
Yeah, nothing discretionary.
On a federal level, that's like our Medicaid, Social Security. Right, that we got to pay for it, and we have those obligations on a state level.
Well, you could always cut them.
And that's where we're headed, is that you're going to see programs get cut, and where you don't see programs get cut, you're going to see attempts to make up for the revenue. So one of the number one things that got said 3 years ago in a committee by a person who is now a congressman, I remember when the senator was sitting in our committee, he was just like, we'll just raise sales tax. And sales tax hits working people
Yeah.
more than it does
Yeah.
anybody else. So sales tax,
Like
a
the most
sales tax
regressive
bill is
thing you could
coming.
do.
Yeah, a sales tax bill is coming. So everybody that was voting worried about, they want to get the cost of their goods down. Their goods are getting ready to go up exponentially. Number two, you've got a problem that they're going to come back with casinos again. They're going to come back with video lottery terminals and all these gambling opportunities. And again, not about how you feel about the business. Because, that's one thing messaging wise Republicans are great at. Yeah, you say you dislike something, a way something is being done, and immediately, so you hate apple pie and you hate babies. And
Right.
Yes. Yeah. And so what we're talking about here is, again, something that tends to be problematic more for working people.
Yep.
I was literally listening to a sports podcast today that was talking about the problem that we've run into in the nation with people in sports betting. And just talking about, just all the economic issues that come out of that. And again, it's not about how you feel about it, but that's it. But ultimately, my problem here is whatever you feel about gambling, by definition, you can't depend on gambling proceeds.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
That is no way to run a business.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we're looking at. So I think that's another issue that we've got. So I think that money is going to be a problem all of the next 2 years.
That's a great way to frame it. I'm just thinking, just telling folks, look, we are paying our bills and keeping our obligation, assuming that folks will empty their pockets in a casino.
Right.
That's we're crossing our fingers.
Well, and is it this year or is it next year where corporate income tax hits zero?
I think next year, but again, I'd have to look. I know the triggers are coming and the triggers are in place. I don't know when
But
they happen.
that leads to this financial cliff, revenue cliff.
And again, what's amazing about it is that we have sold working Joe out here on the idea that a shouldn't have to pay to be here, but we should. And that's the most fascinating thing in the world is that we've got people that just believe that.
I use a different F word.
But I'm serious. I remember hearing a person debate on the floor that, it was shameful how we expected corporations to pay taxes. And I was like, Doc, that's part of living in a civilized society.
Right.
If I've got to pay taxes, they've got to pay taxes.
Yeah.
Now if you want to say I don't have to pay tax, they don't have to pay tax, and you got this all figured out, fine. But
move to South Carolina.
Yeah, yes. Look how that works out. But that is the big thing that we've got to worry about is all of the schemes that are going to go in place that are going to have to come off the backs of working people because we've made a determination that we're not going to ask, anybody with wealth to pay their share.
So I might put you on the hot seat here. You don't have to answer it. How strong is Governor Stein's veto? How confident can our listeners be? Because after this past election, that was a big win for us, right?
Yeah,
like you
huge.
just heard constantly that Stein's got his veto here. How can we believe in that? Can Democrats believe in Stein's veto?
Here's what I'll say: Republican leadership has said that they've got a supermajority, no matter what the numbers say. That's what they've said. What I'll tell you is this, I know the members of that caucus, he's got a strong veto, but this is where it comes down to we've got to decide who we're going to be as a caucus. If we're going to be a caucus that runs purity tests, we're going to be a caucus that says that you're not good enough because you don't think like I do, we'll never hold up a single veto. If we're a caucus that accepts that it takes all of us to be Democrats and that if I got elected to this office, I got elected by a bunch of Democrats. Along with Republicans, obviously. But I got elected by people who believed in me as a Democrat and that there may be a reason that I think the way that I do. If we accept that, we'll hold every veto he's got. I'm just telling you that
that gives me some hope.
Yeah. It is entirely on us. And that is my job as leader is to make people understand it's not about can I get X member to vote. It's can I get X member to accept these other members and their thought process
that's interesting,
to allow them to vote. Because here's my thing. If you come in and give me one vote, but you run 3 votes off, that's a net loss. It's kind of like with basketball. Hey, coach, I scored 30 points. Yeah, but the guy you're guarding keeps scoring 60 points. Then you're really not doing me any good.
Right.
And that's my thing here is that I think that we've got to be serious about how we evaluate what being a Democrat is. And to me, if you spend your time reducing the number of people in our coalition, then there is no difference with you than there is with somebody that you would traditionally call a quote unquote bad Democrat.
Yeah.
In fact, I would make the argument that you're worse because you're shrinking our coalition. You can't be a person who says, you know what, I'm good if we only have 10 people as long as they're 10 pure people. Nah, that's not how we're doing. That's not how we're getting back in the majority. So that is the challenge that I have. That is the challenge we have as Democrats. Do I have confidence? Absolutely, because I know the people in that caucus. But, it's a question if that's who we want to be.
Yeah. Well, this has been a phenomenal conversation.
Yes, I
was
it.
really looking forward to this. I was stoked when we got it on the books, and it has totally delivered. And I'm proud of you, Quinn, for asking the veto question. You're coming. He was like, I don't know if I'm going to ask him, and I was like, we'll just feel it out, and we'll see how it goes.
That's a fair question. I appreciate you asking that question.
Well, we appreciate your answer, and we appreciate you coming on the Hometown Holler. We have a special gift for you from our friends at TS Designs. They are Alamance County's premier apparel company. We got T-shirts that we give to folks it's a 100% North Carolina, South Carolina supply chain. So all the cotton is fair trade, from dirt to shirt. It's I got my whole pitch. I got my whole spiel. It's a shirt you can feel good in and feel good about. And the best part of it is it's got our beautiful, sexy Hometown Holler logo front and center.
There you go.
That's it right there.
So pull that out on the house floor. And
we'll get your
you'll
size
pass any
off
vote
the
you
air.
want. You got.
Well, I'm telling you, I appreciate the opportunity and appreciate the shirt. And I am thankful now that I found out once I got here that, we're on video, because I could have had a real T-shirt on today. And I was just like, thank God I didn't wear that.
Where can folks find you, stay up to date with what you're doing and what the North Carolina Democrats are doing?
North Carolina Democrats you can find at ncdemocrats.org. And you can also find me at reevesforhouse.com.
Are you on any of the socials?
Oh, yeah, we're on everything. We're on Instagram. We're on X, Twitter. We're not on TikTok. We gotta be better about that, and we're on Facebook.
It might only be around for a little bit longer. But before we leave too, I want to give a big shout out to if y'all are watching this on the YouTubes and you see some stuff different with our set today. We have our friends from East Venture Digitals here, Trey and Steph. They brought in some lights, they got in some cameras, and just tried to step it up and help production. So if you need any production help, definitely check them out. They're on the Instagram. They're on the socials. You can find them, East Venture Digitals, and they do.
You guys got cards?
They do. They have cards, and if you want to see some of the work, you can go to my website, quinnrayfornc.com, and you can see a bunch of my campaign videos that they did. And I shared them across to a lot of the members of the party across the state, and they're like, I was just running for local, and they're like, man, are you trying to run for state or something right now? Like, what kind of production level are you doing? And so they're as pro as it gets. But other than that, Representative Reives, Robert, thanks for coming. It was awesome.
Thank you so much.
Can I give one shout out that I did not give during the time we were talking? Anderson.
Yeah.
I want to give Anderson a shout out because we had the most cooperation between the caucus and the party that we've had since I've been there. And I want to tell her how much I appreciate that out loud. It is she's in another job that can sometimes be thankless.
Yeah.
And I am telling you, she went way out of her way to cooperate with us and to try to make people understand that the legislature matters again. So I just want to tell her thank you. Well, I've got a public forum to say.
Oh, that is a good one.
Yeah. Well, I know she preached that. I know she appreciates that, and we certainly appreciate her too. We had a great conversation with her at Elon University. We did a live event. She came out for that, and that was spectacular. So we absolutely echo that. She's a great friend of the pod, and North Carolina is very lucky to have her.
Yes, absolutely.
Until next time, y'all. We'll see you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.